Greetings. This is Rosalind Parks with National Network View. On tonight's show, Sister Charlene Muhammad, National Correspondent for the Final Call newspaper, will join us to update us on efforts to suspend the COVID-19 vaccines after recipients develop blood clots and other severe adverse reactions. Dr. Akili will join us to discuss the coronavirus variants and the wave of new COVID cases. He will also educate us about the meaning of Ramadan, commemorated by Muslims throughout the world during the holy month. Before we delve into the top news, let's do a recap of the current events of the week. On yesterday's broadcast, Deshaun Farad and Eric Muhammad discussed the latest in the ongoing murder trial of Derek Chauvin, who was charged with killing George Floyd.
So from your perspective, is there a correlation between these efforts to defund the police department and this rise in violence in America?
No, it's absolutely not. And I say, I want y'all to watch this movie called Them, and I say, as they said on Them, the white man is the devil, right? It's beloved, it's who he is. It's his nature, and you create a system, right? And then now you have to police that system. And this is how they police that system. So no to your answer. There is no connection between defunding the police and violence. They are who they are. They committed the violence and they still getting paid.
Eric Muhammad discussed the untimely death of hip-hop music artist DMX and reminded us that his family members said he recently received the COVID vaccine.
Why do you think a country like America that's considered to be a world power, it leads the world in addictions according to a 2019 study?
You know, the Quran says, when an unrighteous man brings you news, look carefully into it lest you harm a people in ignorance and then be sorry for what you did. And I know the clip started out with saying that our brother died because of a heart attack with drug use. But there was another clip that also came out where a family member said that he took the vaccine, a week earlier. Right. And then so now what happens is we start to run on certain things. But to go to your question is because, America is what it is. It is a pharmaceutical company where it's only two countries. I can't think of the name right now where you cannot market directly to the people. But America, as we turn on the television every day, we are seeing them market directly to the people these drugs. Because they want to keep the people, especially Black people, in a different state other than reaching our goal and being who God created us to be.
Deshaun Farad discussed how the government responds to drug addiction of Blacks in comparison to its response to the opioid crisis.
And what should be the response of Black leadership when they're seeing that they're making the legislation less punitive for whites, but when it was for Blacks, you didn't see that compassion. We were super predators.
For those, and I'm glad you pointed that out, Brother Will, because we've definitely seen the concern of the opiate crisis for the past decade. And as a journalist, I can't tell you how many times that I've been contacted to do stories on the opiate crisis, interview this person dealing with the opiate crisis. And of course, this didn't become an issue until white kids in the suburbs begin to OD in particular. What I say is those of us who believe in voting, this is where the term all politics are local comes in. We have to stay on our local city council people. We have to stay on our state representatives, our senators, and our Congress. And we have to form powerful voting blocks that hold these politicians accountable, these Democrats in particular, because of the fact that the Democratic Party is always coming to us. Just like we say we ought to make demands of those of us who are reparations advocates, when we say we ought to hold Democrats and other politicians accountable for getting us reparations, we ought to take the same position when it comes to legislation that deals with these unjust drug laws that that were actually brought about, of course, during the 1980s, as Reverend Jesse Jackson pointed out.
Brother Willie Muhammad, host of I Have a Testimony, spoke with Arthur Reed about his personal testimonies and interactions with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
How has the guidance and how does the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan aid you in the work that you're doing?
Well, as you know, I've met with the minister several times. I've been blessed to get guidance from him personally. And one of those pictures that you had where I'm sitting there crying is me confessing to the minister. I'm with you 100%, brother minister, but I'm not as strong as I would like to be in certain areas, And that's one of the things that, that made me have the utmost love and respect for the minister. When the minister told me, he said, "You're a great man, but you're going to be really, really great." And he said, "Man, Allah is patient. So work on yourself, continue to work on yourself because Allah has touched you." And I see those things happening every day.
Robert Muhammad spoke with the student minister Patrick Muhammad regarding current events in the Suez Canal and supply chain disruptions.
How fragile is the American supply chain? And do you think more fissures or cracks will be discovered during the pandemic? And if so, could famine very well be one of them, and why?
Oh, yes, the writings are on the wall, and we are seeing it. We're actually living the scriptures. We're actually living prophecy. The book of Luke in the Bible talks about, "And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, in famines, in pestilences, in fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven." And then Matthew, Jesus himself said, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." And he says this is the beginning of sorrows.
Tariq X spoke with NNB reporter Nina Shabazz and Valerie Campbell about the law of attraction and sexual polarity.
Sure. Can you tell us what does the acronym VIBE stand for?
Right. VIBE stands for vision, intention, belief, and expectation. And it's a formula that I devised from my learnings and from my just understanding about how men and women relate to one another. And so it takes women on a journey. So the V is for vision, which basically teaches the woman how to look at herself in the right way, acknowledge what she's been indoctrinated with, what the world tells that she has about herself. So that's the vision. And then from that place, then setting an intention for how she wants to feel in a relationship. So for example, a lady might say to me, she wants a guy with washboard abs, and, tall, dark, and handsome. And when you dig deep and say, well, why do you want that? It's because she wants to feel a particular way. I then deal with the beliefs, which is the limiting beliefs. And sometimes you can have beliefs that actually sabotage the relationship that you're in, or actually sabotage the type of man that you want to attract. Self-attraction works. Take out those beliefs that are sabotaging the relationship. It ends them in expectation and understanding that you're not going to lean on your understanding of how you think you're Mr. Right. That's what the VIBE formula is about.
Hassan Muhammad provided valuable information on establishing a budget, reducing spending on non-essential goods, and building wealth.
How can you use budgeting to start to build up wealth for you and your family?
Just very quickly, because I know we don't have a lot of time, but as we talked about that bottom line, that net operating income, if you have, let's say, an additional $1,000 a month on your net operating income, you and your family now can sit down and say, okay, what is it that we can do with $1,000? What can we either A, invest in, or B, buy and resell or make and produce with that 1,000 to turn it into 1,100? Even just turning it into 1,100. If you can do that every single month, you will be better than every single Wall Street investor that there is out there. That's a 10% gain. So, yes, sir.
Patrick Oliver with Read Out Loud Readers and Writers event discussed reading and writing literacy programs to decrease the achievement gap of young Black boys.
What factors have led to these poor literacy outcomes among Blacks and Hispanics?
Lack of attention. Bottom line, when you send your children to schools, we taught somebody about somebody that doesn't look like them. What do we expect to happen? And that's what is happening. People that does not look like our children are teaching our children and they are not giving them the best product necessary for them to become proficient. As a matter of fact, our children are born at genius level. We know this. We know this from just scientific research. We just know this from just being around our children. So when we send them to school for others to teach them, they're not going to teach our children or nurture their natural genius. They're going to give them just enough so they can possibly pass some standardized tests, so they can, receive their federal dollars, whatever the case may be. But that's the first problem. And the other problem is they don't really understand, again, what nurtures Black children, Black boys' interests.
NNV contributor Brian E. Muhammad discussed the UN General Assembly commemorative meeting acknowledging victims of the transatlantic slave trade, the need for reparatory justice, and the ways the U.S. and European nations continue to benefit from slave labor, colonization, and stolen land.
In what ways has the U.S. and other European nations benefited from slave labor, benefited from colonization, and even stolen lands?
There's a book that the Nation of Islam research team put together called How the White Man Got So Rich. And then there's another book that was out for many years called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. See, these books are talking about the exploitation and how that was done. Now, when you look at slavery, the traditional slavery as we know it, of what happened to our people, if you take a land from our indigenous brothers and sisters, and then you go in Africa and you bring Africans and enslave Africans, and they work for free for 300 years, right? That will put you in a very good position financially if you're the enslaver.
Netfa Freeman of the Black Alliance for Peace updated us on the protests in Haiti, the interventionism of the United States, the United Nations, and Organizations of American States into Haiti and other neo-colonized countries.
The Haitian people's right to national sovereignty must be respected. Is the Haitian president, Jovenel Moise's refusal to step down disrespecting the Haitian people's right to sovereignty?
Well, I mean, absolutely it is. There's thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people in the street protesting Jovenel Moise. And so whenever the people aren't able to exercise and have what they want in terms of leadership, in terms of government, in terms of policies, then that means that they don't have any sovereignty. Not to mention the fact that the Jovenel Moise represents the interests of the West. He is like the person before him, Michel Martelly. They have been handpicked by the United States, by the U.S. pretty much, but all the Western powers, and so without, as long as the people can't get their choice in terms of being exercise democratic rights to voting on people, representatives, and policies, then that's a breach of the sovereignty of the people.
Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. Afterward, Sister Charlene will return to talk about the experimental COVID vaccine and the efforts to get rid of it due to its many adverse side effects. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
This is Sister Sajida Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajida House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajidahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small but significant steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
16 countries have suspended the use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine due to reports of unusual blood clots causing deaths and other severe adverse reactions.
16 countries have suspended the shot. AstraZeneca is what we call Covishield in India. In Europe, some people are said to have developed blood clots after taking this vaccine. Then the suspensions began. Denmark was the first to do it. It was followed by Norway and Iceland, Ireland, the Netherlands, Romania, Bulgaria, and Thailand. All these countries have placed a temporary suspension on the AstraZeneca vaccine. Then we have countries like Austria, Estonia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Latvia, and Italy. These have suspended a specific batch of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Spain has delayed using this vaccine to inoculate people between 55 and 65 years of age. And just before we began the show, we got a flash from Berlin. Germany has now suspended the use of this shot as a quote-unquote precautionary measure. So in one way or the other, at least 16 countries have now suspended the AstraZeneca shot.
Joining us is Sister Charlene Muhammad with the Final Call News. Greetings.
Greetings. How are you?
Great, great. Your article in the Final Call newspaper is entitled Fears of Blood Clots, Other Problems, and the Experimental Vaccines. As we just heard, 16 countries have suspended the use of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine due to blood clots and other reactions being reported. Is it true that women are the group that is most likely being affected by the blood clots?
Thank you for your question. Well, investigators are bearing that out. They say they don't know. However, in the US, as we talk about AstraZeneca across the world being paused or suspended, the US on today recommended a pause in the Johnson & Johnson shot. Johnson & Johnson just came out and it's one shot. And many people were saying that they favor that shot over the others because you need 2 doses of Moderna and Pfizer. And I bring that up because Johnson & Johnson, the U.S. federal regulators are saying that 6 women, there have been cases of 6 women between 18 and 48 who have reported these blood clots, and these blood clots are very dangerous. They're saying they're rare, not too much to be concerned about, but there's enough to pause it. So I don't know, the regulators haven't said mostly women, but in the U.S., it's been a report of 6 women.
6 women. And I'm glad you said that. With blood clots, can you speak on the significance of blood clots or just the significance of this particular side effect in relationship to the vaccine?
Sure. This side effect, the one that has been reported for AstraZeneca, which is also the same side effect that's being reported for Johnson & Johnson, causes blood drainage from the brain. And there's also reports that it causes clotting in the abdomen. And at least 18 of AstraZeneca's reporting, 18 people have died. That's as of last week. We don't know what the numbers are today, but it's very serious. Blood clotting is serious, but this is drainage from the brain. There have been reports of people who have experienced clotting saying they have excruciating headaches, like beyond migraine headaches. So it's deadly. It can be very deadly.
Wow. Okay. Why just suspend the Johnson & Johnson vaccine?
Depopulation, baby. I don't mean to be so familiar and light about it because it's serious, but the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said the #1 aim is the scheme, the plan, the U.S. depopulation policy, actually is the word, policy. And so these vaccines are these experimental injections. They're not vaccines. They're being tested on populations right now. It's money. Also, there's this heavy investment in it, but they're about 7.5 to 6 points actually that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Executive Council of the Nation of Islam, put out about these mRNA experimental vaccines. And on the top of the list, to reiterate, is the U.S. policy of depopulation.
Got it. Now, we've talked a lot about blood clots. Are there any other dangerous adverse reactions occurring in each of the COVID vaccines?
Yes, people have reported, of course, deaths. But look, you know, you may understand, and I want to make sure I'm clear to report factually, they're not linking, they meaning the federal health agencies and those who are driving this vaccine, Operation Warp Speed. They're not linking this vaccine, these adverse side effects, these deaths, to any of the experimental shots. They're saying, oh, the person had an underlying health condition, this is why they died. But we're seeing reports of people whose loved ones are saying, oh, they had the vaccine a month ago, they had the vaccine a week ago, they had the vaccine 2 days ago. They're reporting adverse side effects such as heart attack, stroke. They're having these blood clots. One man, the disease name is, I'm not even going to go into the name here and try to break that down, but he's experienced his skin, flesh just falling off. Huge rashes. There's so many different things being reported. The federal site that allows people to report, we do want to make clear as well, anyone can report to that site. The government, the CDC and the FDA, they only investigate what they call severe and serious side effects.
Now, on that website, I believe it's called the VAERS site, I've seen some things be reported, in particular for pregnant women. A lot of the women who have been receiving the vaccines have reported miscarriage. Can you give us some insight as to what may prompt a miscarriage from receiving this vaccine?
Well, thank you for that question, sister. I don't know what's in the vaccine, but I know that, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has stated, it is death. Dr. Judy Mikovits, an epidemiologist and longtime researcher of mRNA, told the Final Call very early on in a warning, and it's in black and white at finalcall.com, that this vaccine, Dr. Mikovits and other scientists, not just her, said causes sterilization. There are many recommendations that had come out, even from the drug makers themselves, that it was not recommended for women of childbearing age. That has changed, apparently, the warning label on that. However, it's experimental, and people are taking these shots and they don't even have symptoms. They're otherwise healthy. Also highly recommended to not have this, according to the scientists we've interviewed for the Final Call, are athletes, because it really destabilizes the body. And so, again, this is not, this experimental shot has been, as student minister Dr. Ava Muhammad as well in her research, and Dr. Wesley Muhammad, we're writing about this. This has been tested in a controlled environment, this drug. This gets into the wildlife, into the population, and it's taking on a life of its own. The United Kingdom variant, which is very highly contagious and dangerous, is in all 50 states across the US, right? And it's just spreading. I mean, you just can't contend with this coronavirus. I hope I answered your question. I just started thinking. You
answered the question. No, that was a beautiful answer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
losing children and otherwise, there's nothing wrong with them.
Well, and speaking of the writers, your article in the Final Call newspaper, according to it, 144 people in Michigan that were fully vaccinated still contracted COVID-19. So the question is, why are fully vaccinated people contracting COVID and dying after taking the vaccine?
I will paraphrase Moderna and Pfizer themselves.
Okay.
This does not prevent you from contracting the virus. It prevents severe hospitalization or illness. And as we see, that's questionable.
Right.
You know, it doesn't prevent you from catching the disease. You must still do every single thing. We're seeing, Sister Rosalind, people say, I got my shot. I'm going to see my grandma. Well, grandma locked the door because you still have to make sure that you have all of the protocols in place. It doesn't stop anything.
Now, is it
from heaven? I'm sorry.
I apologize.
No.
I wanted to know, is there a possibility that the vaccines are actually introducing the virus to people?
This is what some say. Some have alleged that. I won't say yes or no because I have no way of knowing that. I have no proof of that, but this is what those that we have interviewed say, that actually it gives the virus is transmitted in the injection. As a matter of fact, I do want to say that I've been told that several times by scientists that you actually get that synthetic strain. So let me stand corrected. That is actually reported, but in the way that I received what you said,
Yes.
I need to rephrase my answer. That is something that we have been told by very credible sources for the Final Call newspaper. And also that once this gets into the system, because of all of the other different elements in the mRNA, that whatever you have as a comorbidity or anything that you thought was dormant, such as HIV and other illnesses, it turns it on 100 times more. This is according to scientists like Dr. Judy Mikovits, who also again told us about the sterilization and gave the warning to Black people.
Wow. Okay. Now I have one more question for you really quickly. In Michigan, of course, we found out that in the last 7 days, there have been more than 51,000 reported cases of COVID-19. Has the relaxing of preventative measures such as appropriate physical distancing, mask wearing, avoiding gatherings in large numbers led to the uptick in cases across the country?
The answer to that, I would say, is yes. And this is according to Michigan governor as well as the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky. Look, it's the false sense of hope. Some people already don't even believe that there's a coronavirus, but the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan stand true, and they're coming to pass, every last one of them, in the criterion. This is a pestilence from heaven. Go into your chamber. When you're going out, go out for essentials, wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, continue following the protocols because the walls are down. And so, yes, this is according to the CDC. And also the states are reopening. So
Right.
people are dining in restaurants again, and, you know, amusement parks that are open, and it's just reopening. But he said, do not trust these governors. Continue to go and stay in your chambers.
Perfect. Thank you, Sister Charlene, for joining us today and adding so much information to this discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. NNV Weekly contributor Dr. Akili will join us after the break to talk about the new wave of the coronavirus and its variants. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. As we renovate and restore the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have recycled the old copper gutters and downspouts and created a 1 ounce 39 millimeter coin made of 100% pure copper. Each coin is professionally graded and has its own barcode and registration number. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Concerns over a possible fourth wave of the COVID-19 virus with variant strains sweeping across the country are increasing the likelihood of a virus passport.
It is the most common lineage, period.
The highly contagious variant of COVID-19, first discovered in the United Kingdom, has become the most common strain of the virus in the United States. Speaking at a White House briefing, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky said the strain, known as B.1.1.7, which was identified in Britain last fall, seems to be behind a surge in cases among young people.
Hospitals are seeing more and more younger adults, those in their 30s and 40s, admitted with severe disease. Data suggests this is all happening as we are seeing increasing prevalence of SARS-CoV-2 variants, with 52 jurisdictions now reporting cases of variants of concern. Based on our most recent estimates from CDC surveillance, the B.1.1.7 variant is now the most common lineage circulating in the United States.
Another variant, this one first discovered in South Africa, that is thought to be resistant to some COVID-19 vaccines, has also been detected in the U.S. Public health officials have urged Americans to get vaccinated as soon as possible, in part to prevent these new variants from spreading.
Joining us to discuss this is Dr. Akili.
How are you, ma'am?
Greetings. I'm great. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's get right into it. Dr. Akili, doctors and researchers across various countries have expressed concerns over the blood clots and other reactions being reported in recipients of the COVID vaccine. We just heard Sister Charlene give us some insight on that as well. Can you give a few examples of countries that have suspended the AstraZeneca COVID vaccines or other vaccines?
Yes, ma'am. I have a list right here because it's quite a few countries. Let me just, do you mind if I go through them quickly?
Go ahead.
So it's Norway, Iceland, Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Denmark, Austria, Ireland, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Congo, and the Thailand are the ones that I saw in some of the articles. There's been a lot of information, of course, that's come out recently. And so sometimes it's difficult to keep them all together, but I did jot down the countries. And it seems to me that most of them are concerned with the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson blood clot issues, which has been a concern from the beginning, even with the two other vaccines from the two shots of Moderna and Pfizer. There were concerns with that as well when it first came out, because there's a substance in it called polyethylene glycol in both of them, the Pfizer and the Moderna, that were linked to clotting problems before, and it's based in platelets. Platelets are very small molecules, not molecules, they're very small substances in our bloodstream, and they regulate clotting. So if we cut our skin or something like that, the reason why you stop bleeding is because of your platelets. They go and they cover up holes or cover up areas that are leaking. And that's what gives us the ability to clot and not bleed to death. And so this substance, and it seems like all of these vaccines, have a propensity in some people to cause them to have their platelet counts go really low. And so this is causing bleeding in certain areas of the body, and sometimes just inability of people to be able to not have blood flow go in places that they're not supposed to be, and it can have a lot of consequences with that.
Okay. Now, the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, raised concerns over the rising rate of infections. On average, about 63,000 COVID cases are reported per day, and there have been 5,000 hospital admissions per day in the last 7 days.
Yes.
Are we in the midst of a fourth wave?
Based on what I'm seeing, I would say yes. The numbers are like all of us are saying, that they're starting to rise again, and it seems like each time these governors or these regulators decide to open back up cities and states, there is a rise seemingly in conjunction with that opening. And so because of the effect of these variants and the way that they are supposedly bringing in higher rates of disease, more serious disease, and increased rates of disease, then I think many healthcare workers especially are considering this another wave. I would, it's kind of difficult for me to agree with 4, because it seems to me like there's been more than that, but that's right. That's the typical number that we get from the medical community, is that this is potentially the fourth wave.
Gotcha. At this rate, do you feel that this virus will ever be controlled?
Well, I trust and believe and really use the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as a foundation of my life, spiritually, physically, emotionally, psychologically. He said that scientists from hell would not be able to gather and stop this or treat this or manage this. And we're seeing that reality. So it's another reality of the minister making statements, and then we watch the reality of those statements come into fruition, even when people think he doesn't have the capability to speak to certain aspects of society.
Right.
But, without me seeing any evidence that they do, I think his words are ringing 1,000% true, because this medical community, the CDC, the NIH, and even the medical organizations around the world seem to be completely confounded by this, which is what he said what was going to happen.
Right. Now, emergency room physician Dr. Abdullah Hassan Pratt said that before they can issue a black box warning, regulators must see a significant amount. I want to just take a moment and define what a black box warning is. Prior to doing some research on this segment, I did not know what a black box warning is. So a black box warning is also commonly known as a box warning. It is issued when reasonable evidence suggests an association of a serious safety hazard with a drug product. A causal relationship does not need to be established for a black box warning to appear on a drug's labeling. Now, with that said, does this mean that if cases of blood clots are just happening in a small percentage of people, the CDC and the FDA will continue to keep the vaccines on the market?
Yes, as you were reading that, I kind of had a memory of doctors being in commercials in the 40s and the 50s smoking cigarettes. And they were promoting cigarette smoking in public. And now we have a black box warning label on cigarettes, cigars, all of those different types of substances, as well as alcoholic beverages as well. Mm-hmm. And so we know now for sure, because of the things that have happened over the years and the rate that they have happened over the years, that smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol has definitely dire health consequences later on down the line. And so when we're looking at, and if we just specifically look at just blood clots, for instance, we're being told in public that this shot is going to improve your possibility of making it out of this pandemic without having serious disease. And yet we're talking about people that are getting the vaccine and having these serious blood clot problems or these serious inabilities to stop blood from clotting, right? So to me, this is one of those things where when you're reading the literature that's out here, it's a play on words. Because yes, you can look at the vaccine and say, which most of these companies are saying, that there is no real change in the number of people that are getting blood clots with a vaccine versus those in the general population. But what people have to take in consideration is that people are going to a vaccine out of fear of dying from COVID. And so you're taking this vaccine because you want not to get sick, even though there was no guarantee. None of these vaccines, when they even were getting emergency use authorization, did they ever say this would stop you from getting infected? They didn't say that they would stop you from spreading it. And it also didn't say that it would stop you from getting sick. All of these vaccines, the company said that it would stop you from getting severe disease from COVID. But what we're seeing is that there are many, many other serious problems that are coming after people are taking this vaccine. The blood clots just happen to be the one that's most prevalent right now because of how many people have had it with the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson.
Right. You know, VAERS is the reporting system that is used to track all of these side effects. Is it possible that the VAERS system is faulty, or is it even possible to obtain the true number of COVID cases?
That's an excellent question. I personally would say that I don't think it can be accurate, but I won't say that it's faulty within the VAERS system. I think it's faulty because of the push for vaccines and the public is not being completely educated. If we were to speak about vaccines and allow people to take the time to try to understand what they need to know to make a healthy decision, VAERS should be part of that education. So as we are telling people this vaccine is available, you should look into this vaccine. This vaccine has 2 shots. This one has 1. In addition to that information should be, here is a reporting agency that you can use if you wind up taking a vaccine and you have certain side effects. Because what we have known for sure since VAERS system has been around is that there has been a very small number of people that actually report their events once they are vaccinated. Why? Because the medical community shuns that. Community makes the general population feel as if they're ignorant, foolish, and sometimes even a conspiracy theorist to say that you develop this particular side effect. Or a mother who knows her child better than anybody else will start to say, once my child got this vaccine, I started to see a change. That is shunned. And not, I wouldn't necessarily use the word shunned. It's worse than that. That in the medical community is looked at very negatively. And people are made to seem as if they are foolish for even bringing something like that up. So I think in general, people are pushed away from even thinking that something potentially could happen negatively from a vaccine. And so the VAERS reporting system just isn't common knowledge enough for it to be as effective as it could or should be when we're having a pandemic and these vaccines are being pushed on us like they are.
Thank you so much for that answer, Dr. Akili. I want to take a moment to pause. We'll be right back after these announcements from our sponsors. When we return, Dr. Akili will rejoin us to explain the meaning of Ramadan and why Muslims celebrate this holy month. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds. Online education. Helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4255. 4848. This week's headline for the Final Call cover story is entitled, Under the Shadow of Death. The trial of Derek Chauvin, the ex-police officer and accused murder of George Floyd, has begun, giving exposure to grief, loss, and the terror Black people continue to suffer with no guarantee of justice. This FCM Volume Number 27 edition features the middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the message to the Nubian Leadership Circle entitled, Building a Nation of Our Own. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the nnvnews.com Final Call Cover Report.
The holy month of Ramadan is celebrated by all Muslims in commemoration of the Quran being revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
With more than 1.5 billion Muslims gearing up to celebrate the holiday, we wanted to explore its origins and significance. So what is Ramadan? Well, Ramadan is a holiday practiced by all Muslims. They fast from sunup to sundown to show their devotion to God or Allah. Ramadan comes on the 9th month in the lunar-based Islamic calendar and is considered the most holy month of all. According to Islam, Ramadan is believed to be the month in which the angel Gabriel revealed the word of God to the Prophet Muhammad. This later became the Quran and included instructions to honor the month of Ramadan itself. The Quran says the month of Ramadan is a guidance for the people and clear proofs of guidance and criterion. So when the moon is first sighted on the 9th month, all Muslims who are healthy and past puberty are required to fast during daylight. The fast includes abstination from food, water, sex, violence, smoking, and other sinful behavior. Fasting can be physically and psychologically challenging, but it's supposed to help Muslims grow spiritually and show their devotion to God.
Dr. Akili, what are some benefits of the Ramadan fast?
Wow, there's so many. If you don't mind, I'd like to read from How to Eat to Live in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In Book 1, page 46, he says, in this month of fasting, we shall keep our minds and hearts clean, and we shall not indulge in the eating of meats, land meats. You may eat fish and such fat products which come from land animals such as butter and cheese. And then later in this page, he says, keep up prayer and let us all be grateful to Allah for his coming in the person of Master Father Muhammad throughout the month of December and every month. And during this month, let there be no quarreling or disputing in our homes or abroad. And so as the introduction said, we're to abstain from water, food, sexual relations, and then, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, from quarreling and having arguments and being disagreeable. We try our best to set up an environment of peace, tranquility, and that is the emotional, psychological, and emotional benefit. And if he's telling us that we should decrease land meat eating and stick with fish, we can eat cheese and butter from land animals, but not the meat. This is easing the body from a lot of digestion. And then, as many of us may have seen recently in social media and other places, there's a lot of talk about intermittent fasting and the benefits of going long periods of time in between meals. And so when people practice this and do their best to try to stick with these rules and regulations, and then, of course, we're praying and supposed to be praying a minimum of 5 times a day, then this will lead you to have a lot more peaceful spirit within yourself, a lot less running and looking for something to eat, trying to figure out what you're going to eat, or running to get something to drink. It's a lot more time spent sacrificing for the sake of gratitude towards Allah, who has given us everything that we have. So I pray I answered that question.
You did, and I have one right linked to that. The gut-brain link with fasting, we're giving our bodies a break. A lot of people report clarity when they fast, with the gut being the main place where the immune system is thought to live. Can you speak to the benefit of fasting and health as a result of giving your stomach a break?
Yes, and that's another amazing aspect of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in How to Eat to Live, about eating one meal a day or eating one meal every other day. That gives the body time to recuperate, to make sure that everything that you have put in that system has been finished digesting, finished being absorbed, and then being used by the body. All of those processes I just mentioned, digestion, absorption, and then the putting of all those nutrients that you just gather into the right places, all of those processes take many hours. And so when we give our body the time to do all of those things, the stomach gets a rest. And so when we're talking about the gut-brain connection, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that they are both connected. And when you treat one well, you treat the other one well. And if you treat one bad, you treat the other one good. So if we're giving that GI system, gastrointestinal system, same thing as the gut, a break, then those are the two systems that produce all of the feel-good hormones, the positive, clarity, feel-good, promotional hormones that keep our bodies and keep our minds so attuned and so connected to beautiful things. That's why many people, when they fast, they have experiences that they haven't had with any other aspect. When those two systems are working together, and they work together so much better when we are fasting and not burning in that system, people tend to have a much more clear and a much more peaceful, I would say, admiration of the world.
Good point. Good point. What are your primary suggestions for those who have no limitations during Ramadan?
Yeah, so my suggestion is that in most places in the world, I think, well, let me not say the world, I've just mostly researched the United States. Mostly in the United States, we'll be fasting from 14 to 16 hours. When you go long periods of time in between meals like that, and you haven't had anything to drink, and most importantly, I'm talking about water, the most important thing that we should do in the morning before we start to fast, and the most important thing that we should do when we break the fast, is hydrate. And hydration is different just drinking water. If you open a bottle of water and just drink, that's good for you. But hydration tends to have the water be in the body, in the cells, longer periods of time, which helps with cleansing, which helps with all of the processes of the body that happen when we're giving it rest. And so that's my biggest suggestion. Make sure you're choosing the right foods. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, if you're going to eat meat, you probably should stick with fish, which is the easiest meat to digest. And then if we're eating the right type of foods, bean soup, whole milk, good fruits and vegetables that should be organic, those long periods of time in between eating will give us a lot of ability to heal and make the body much better in 30 days.
Perfect. What are your primary suggestions for those who actually have medical problems during Ramadan?
Yeah, so I say to people that may be struggling with medical problems, or people that have to take medications and they have to take food with it, that pay attention to the beginning of our prayers. We always say, in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. Beneficence means gifts, means, being nice and kind to yourself and others. And then mercy, most of us know what that is. We get these beneficial things and we really didn't do anything to earn it. And so I would say to all people that have a medical problem, or as I said before, if you're taking medications and you need to take something to eat, then be kind to yourself, because you can still, if you have to do that after your prayer, if you have to do that in the middle of the day, just do the best that you can to follow as much of it as you can. And some things that you may be bound to for health's sake, just give yourself some beneficence and mercy and still try to continue to fast with few things that you may not be able to change, and see how it will be those 30 days.
Now, speaking of treating your body well, what would you say, in addition to hydrating, are the healthiest ways to break the fast during Ramadan?
Yes, that's an excellent question. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in How to Eat to Live that we should not break fasts with heavy foods. And my personal experience in practicing Ramadan for the last 11 years is that many people in the evening time, when it's time to break fast, they tend to run to food so quickly. And I think that's something that we should all just maybe slow down and take a little time today, or any day that you decide to, is just look at yourself in the mirror after your shower with no clothes on, and look and see if you may have a few what they call love handles or a fat hanging from certain parts of your body. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but you literally have the ability to go much longer without food than you can go without oxygen, than you can go without water. So let's try in this month, when we're trying to be sacrificial to the gratitude of Allah and what he's given us, let's try to move away from rushing to having a big plate of food and getting so full. And so to me, breaking fast would be something simple like a whole milk smoothie. And when I say whole milk, I'm speaking of milk that has not been pasteurized or homogenized when you buy it. And then once you buy it from the appropriate farm, you should flash pasteurize it yourself. But doing a smoothie with milk and some good organic fruit, maybe with some honey in it, or breaking your fast with some fruit, which is very easy to digest. And my understanding is that a lot of people say that you take a little bit of food before you go to your prayer so that your mind is not on food, but you don't need to break the fast with heavy things to get full. You should be breaking fast with very simple things and easily digested foods, which mostly are fruit and the milk I was talking about. And then that way you're not thinking about food, but you're getting something that's easily digested, a good rush of good nutrients into the body, hopefully after you drink your water first. And then you can not have as much trouble digesting, not have as much trouble having a lot of heavy stuff on your system when you haven't even done the hydration aspect of it yet.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that information, Dr. Akili.
Yes,
thank you for joining us as well for both segments.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for joining us today and tuning into NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Rosalind Parks with National Network View News. Good night.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.